So, hi. If you're watching this, it means I got this to work. So, let's get started. These are all of the books that I read this year. All 76 books, and so we're going to rank them in one of 6 categories. Best of. These are, of course, my most favorite reads of the year. And then quite entertaining. These are books that I largely rated 4 and 5 stars that I really, really enjoyed. And then middle of the road, these are books that I thought were fine, good, not great, or whatever, just middle of the road. Okay, so maybe I didn't like it, but I didn't think it was a bad book. That's what I'm trying to say. And then the 4th category is ho-hum. These are books that I didn't like. I didn't hate them, but I didn't like them. I didn't really think they were great. And then, I hated this book. Wish I hadn't read this book. Wish I had DNF'd this book. Speaking of, our last category, our list of all the books that I've DNF'd this year. So there were more than 76 books here, obviously, because I have quite a few DNFs. So let's get started. And so the first book I read this year is Time Weaver. I hated this book. Is this working? Yes, here we go. Yeah, I hated this book. I wish I had DNF'd it. And then this is like, I guess I should give some context. This is like a fantasy romance. I called it a fantasy romance with tacky dragon wallpaper. So really did not enjoy this. And then I listened to Alice in Wonderland on audiobook, and I thought it was great. So we're going to put that here. And then Death Note. Some of these are my favorite reads of the year. So definitely Death Notes Volume 1 and 2 are going in the best of category. They were absolutely fantastic. Love them so much. Then Shadow and Bone is also one of my favorite reads of the year. That's also going in best of. And then Alice Through the Looking Glass, we're going to put right here next to Alice in Wonderland. And the narrator also did such a good job on these books. And then Death Note Volume 3, I think, is also in best of. All of the Death Note volumes won't be in best of, but these first 3 definitely are. Vatican Princess, that was an amazing book. It was amazing. So I think I'm going to put that here. It's historical fiction. I'm not even telling you. Alice in Wonderland is a classic. Death Note is horror manga. Shadow and Bone, YA fantasy. The Vatican Princess, historical fiction. Okay, and then my first DNF of the year was The Mask of Mirrors. This is adult fantasy. It just wasn't working for me. And then that same month, I also DNF'd The Countess because it was super boring. And Winter Spell that I've been trying to read for months. And the further along I got in it, just like the more, I don't know, weird I thought it was, and not in a good way. So The Countess is historical fiction, and then Winter Spell is YA fantasy again. And then, so in February, I read Sea Witch, was the first book that I finished. I really have mixed feelings about this book. I have a whole review about it. This is YA fantasy. It's a Little Mermaid retelling. I'm going to put this in ho-hum just because there were parts of this book I really liked, and there were parts that just like I hated so much. And then this is I Would Leave Me If I Could by Halsey. This is poetry. It's just not for me. I thought it was good poetry, but I didn't really like it. So I'm actually, I want to put it down here. But I liked it better than that. I'm going to put it in ho-hum. Like, I can't even put it in the middle of the road. It just didn't sit well with me. It's like the more I think about it, the less I like it. And then Death Note Volume 4 and 5. They were very entertaining, but there was like a lot going on in these, and then I didn't like them as much as the first 3 volumes, so I'm going to put that in quite entertaining. Okay, The Wives, I gave this 3 stars. But this is one of my favorite books of the year. It's just like, this is the exact opposite of Halsey's poetry book. Like, the more I think about the wives, the more I like it. It's just so weird and it's crazy. And it just took this turn in the middle and I just hated it, but I had so much fun at the same time. I couldn't put this book down. I just read it almost straight through, which I haven't done in years. So I'm actually going to put this in best of, because I'm not going to change my rating, because I stand by that 3 stars, because that's how I feel. But it's so entertaining. And this is suspense. And then this is a picture book, I've Loved You Since Forever by Hood Copy. This was lovely. But I'm going to put it here. Because, I don't know, that's just where I feel like putting it. And then Map of Shadows by J.F. Penn. This is a thriller. Very short thriller, and it's part of a series. I did not really like this. I only finished it because I was listening to it on audiobook. I'm going to put it right in the ho-hum category. And then Death Note Volume 5 is also going and quite entertaining. Really liked it, but didn't love it as much. And then Death Note Volume 6 is going up here in best of. So satisfying. Okay, so I have Atomic Habits. I thought this was a good book if you're into this kind of stuff. Self-improvement, nonfiction. But again, the more I thought about it, the less I kind of like it. So I'm going to put it in ho-hum. It's good information. Not ho-hum. Put it in the middle of the road. Good information, but I don't know. It's not my favorite thing. And then Siege and Storm, I'm going to put in quite entertaining. I liked Siege and Storm. I just thought I didn't really like all of that military talk. If you don't know, Siege and Storm is book 2 in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, YA fantasy. It just, I don't like people sitting around talking about war and like battles and preparing to battle. It's just not interesting to me. So I didn't like it as much as Shadow and Bone, but I love Nikolai so much, so it's still 4 stars. Okay, and then in February, I DNF'd The Wicked Saints and A Discovery of Witches. Wicked Saints is YA fantasy. Discovery of Witches is adult fantasy. Witch book with a vampire romance. Not as interesting as it sounds. Okay, so now we're in March. And the first book I read in March is the poetry book. This is Dearly by Margaret Atwood, who wrote, you know the name of this book if you're familiar with it. I can't think of it right now. I'm going to put Dearly. See, I gave this 3 stars. There was like one poem in here that I just thought was amazing, and most of them are just kind of not my style. So I'm going to put this in ho-hum. And then The Last Wish by Andrzej Sepkowski. This is fantasy. This is the first prequel book in the Witcher series. I thought this was very entertaining. Very good. And then Caroline Kepnes. Oh my gosh. I gave this 4 stars, but this is one of my favorite books that I read this year. It's suspense. It is so entertaining. And then Tomi, another horror manga. Putting this in quite entertaining. Love that. Then Tell Me My Name. This is suspense. I thought this was really fun. But I'm going to put it in the middle of the road. And then have The Echo Wife. See, The Echo Wife is one of those books that, like, I really, really loved it. And then, like, it fell apart. So this is, like, adult sci-fi, mild suspense. And the second half of the book was just such a letdown. So I'm going to put this in ho-hum. It started great. Crashed and burned. Don't think I have any DNFs for March. Then the first book I finished in April is The Boundless. This was such a good book, but it's like, if you saw my review, I went off on a tangent. I went off on a tangent about this book. Okay, there's like, this girl's on a courtship tour. There are like a couple of different suitors. Technically, there's a total of 3. I did not get what I wanted, and I pitched a big fit about it. So I gave this 4 stars. most beautiful writing ever. I'm definitely going to pick up more books by her, but I just could not look at it anymore. So I'm going to put it in the middle of the road just because it left me a little upset. Then next I read Bone Music. This is Suspense by Christopher Rice. I thought this was really good. Put this in the middle of the road only because I wanted to quit. Ended up giving it 4 stars because it was really good, but I wanted to quit like the first, 50, 60 pages of this book. Then I read Sweet's Kind of Poison by Kitty Weismer. I gave this 4 stars, but again, I feel like ultimately kind of ho-hum about it. I can't really remember anything specific about it at this point in the year, so I'm just going to put it here. And then Know Yourself, Know Your Money. Oh my gosh. Not going to read any more books by Rachel Cruz. Just going to put that there. I gave this 3 stars, which is an extra star more than I gave her last book, but oh my gosh, it put me in such a bad mood. It's nonfiction. It's kind of like talking about money habits, and I thought she was going to talk about how to fix them, but she didn't really do that. And she just can't, I just don't feel like she can relate to people who aren't like her. So, moving on. So, the next book I read was The One. This is sci-fi. And sci-fi, thriller, suspense. This was very entertaining. So, I'm putting that in the quite entertaining category. And then after this, I've finished the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So, another YA fantasy, Ruin Rising. I loved Ruin Rising. I gave it 5 stars. I'm going to put it here, though, because that's just where I want to put it. So, but yeah, I cried. And then next I finished New Mutants. Now, this is a comic book, so I guess it's fantasy, superheroes. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't really like it, though. So I'm going to put it ho-hum. And then the last book I finished in April is Pretty Dead Girls. This is YA suspense, thriller, and also going to put this ho-hum. It was really entertaining, but it was not very good. So also April, DNFs. This Poisoned Heart had an arc of this. Wasn't working for me. And also Son of the Storm was just more dense than is my taste. So going to May, we're starting off with YA fantasy. It would have been better if it was adult fantasy. And we have The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levinseller. Super fun. I'm going to put this in the quite entertaining. And then the next book I finished is Nerve. This is YA thriller suspense. This was very entertaining. But I don't know. The romance in this book was just complete nonsense. So it was entertaining, but it just wasn't very realistic. Which I know sounds crazy. We were talking about, it has sci-fi elements, so it's YA sci-fi suspense. But yeah, it still needs to feel like it could really happen. Just the romance part was just incredibly unrealistic. So then I read Poems from the End of the World by Kitty Weismer. Did not like this as much as The Sweet's Kind of Poison, but I'm going to put them both in the same category anyway. Ho-hum, I gave that 3 stars. It was fun. And then I read House of Holo by Sutherland. This is YA paranormal. Super pretty cover, but this was kind of a letdown though. I gave this 3 stars. It was right up my alley, but it was so predictable, and so it wasn't satisfying. So I'm going to put it in the middle of the road because it was a really good reading experience, but it wasn't a satisfying reading experience, if that makes sense. I had a really good time reading the book, but wanted it out of my house as soon as I finished it. Then the next book was In the Dream House. Hated this. Wanted to DNF it almost the whole time I was reading it. And then next, this is a nonfiction memoir, FYI. And then the next book I read is A Game of Thrones, the graphic novel, volume 3. And I read the first 2 volumes the previous year, 2020. So, yeah, I thought this was great. Gave this 5 stars. So, this is going in quite entertaining. I thought they were doing a really good job adapting a very dense book with a lot going on, a lot of characters into a graphic novel. And I had 2 DNFs in May. The Forest of Stolen Girls. I thought it was YA horror, turned out to be a YA historical fiction, which is not what I wanted. And then I DNF'd The Black Witch because the writing wasn't working for me. And then now we're in June. And the first book I read in June is this picture book. Strange Planet, the sneaking, hiding, vibrating creature. I thought this was like a webcomic, graphic novel format, but it was picture book, but that's fine. So this is fine. Give it 5 stars. It's very lovely. So we're putting in a quite entertaining category. Then I Would Judge You by Your Bookshelf. This is a webcomic graphic novel. I thought this was, some of these memes were like memes situations. Some of these scenarios are really good and really funny and relatable, and some of them were just there. So I'm going to put this in the middle of the road. And then we have Near the Bone by Christina Henry, which is one of my favorite reads of the year. This is adult paranormal horror. So atmospheric, so great. See if I can get this up here and best stuff. There we go. Next, I have Sex and Vanity by Kevin Kwan. This is adult contemporary. It's like a retelling of some movie, I think, but I didn't see that movie and I keep forgetting the name of it. I thought this was hilarious. Not something you want to take super seriously. Probably would have been a better book if it wasn't just for entertainment value, but I thought it was really entertaining. So putting that in quite entertaining. And next I read Heartless. This is, I guess, new adult or upper YA paranormal horror. It was fine. I gave it 4 stars apparently, but I'm going to put it in the middle of the road because, you know, the writing wasn't great. And then next I read Space Between Us. It's a poetry book, and it's by Courtney Peppernell and Zach Gray. I really like Zach Gray's poetry, but I'm kind of burned out on Courtney Peppernell's poetry, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. I'm going to put it in the middle of the road just cause. And then next I read Hidden Bodies, which is book 2 to the U series, and this was freaking great. So we're going to put this in very entertaining. Didn't like it as much as I liked You, but I really liked it. And then we have Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. This was a picture book. And, I mean, obviously Hidden Bodies is also suspense. And, yeah, this is a picture book. I thought it was lovely. I'm going to put it in the middle of the road. And then next I've read A Game of Thrones, the graphic novel Volume 4. So this completes the Game of Thrones book. I thought this was really good. So we're going to put this in quite entertaining. And then I read The Bench by Meghan Markle. And I thought this was really good. Really sweet. So I'm going to put this also in quite entertaining. And then I DNF'd 1 book in, what was that, June? And that was Malice. This is supposed to be an adult, like, Sleeping Beauty retelling, and it read like a YA book, and it read like a lower YA book. So, not having that. It was really funny for like a couple of pages, but then I was like, oh no, this is terrible. So, moving on to July, first book I finished was Absolute Carnage. This was fantastic. Probably the only Marvel comic to get 5 stars for me thus far. So we're putting this in quite entertaining if I can reach it. I did not realize it was going to stack like this, but there we go. And then next I read a poetry book, Glimmer Glass Girl. This is fine. So I'm just going to put this in ho-hum. And then I read The Ivies by Alexa Dunn. This is YA suspense. Also kind of ho-hum. It was fine. Feel about this one the same way I feel about Pretty Dead Girls. Also, the plot was almost basically the same thing. Only Pretty Dead Girls was more fun. So, next I read Otherworldly, which is like I don't know what to call this. A word book, graphic novel, nonfiction. It's just a bunch of words, like a bunch of interesting unusual words and a bunch of pretty pictures, and it was good. So I'm going to put that middle of the road. Good. I like that. And then I have Acts of Desperation, which I thought was a thriller suspense book. It ended up being some kind of weird, dark, contemporary about this woman. She has like a lot of issues. It read like a memoir, but it's not a memoir. It's fiction. Very interesting. But guess I'm gonna call this middle of the road as well. And then I read Song of the Foreverines. This is a fantasy romance. I thought this was good. Also putting this middle of the road, give it 4 stars. And then Rain Before Rainbows, this picture book was just like freaking gorgeous. So I'm gonna try to get that. In quite entertaining, maybe. Why does this happen? Why did I do this? See if I can get this up here. There we go. Next, the only book I didn't have 2 books in July. Inferno by Dan Brown, because I just did not care. I would just rather watch the movie. I didn't want to read it. And then I also DNF, which is Steeped in Gold. I think the writing or the story or something wasn't working for me. So moving on to August, we have You Are Mine by Janelle Fowler. I ended up giving this 3 stars, but I also feel like I kind of hated it at the same time. So I don't know. I kind of feel like I should put it on Ho-Hum, but I kind of hate it. So I don't know. It was interesting, but I'm gonna put it. I guess I'm gonna put it on Ho-Hum. No, I'm gonna put it on no, because I'm pretty sure I want to DNF that book at some point. Kind of not a good use of my time. And then it's YA fantasy. Also, did not say Inferno, suspense, thriller, whatever. And Which is Steeped in Gold is YA fantasy. So, next, I read Dear Midnight, poetry book by Zach Gray. I thought this was really good. Gonna try to get this in the quite entertaining category. Don't know why am I struggling? Is it going up there? Maybe? Can I move it? There we go. And then next book I finished is All's Well by Mona Awad. This was fantastic. Did not like it as much as Bunny. Like, Bunny is just like a solid 5 stars. All's Well was like 4.5 stars. I'm actually gonna put this in quite entertaining. It is one of my, I really enjoyed the book, but like, it's not one of my favorite books that I read this year. So I'm gonna put it there, but I really liked it. And then I read The Last Unicorn by Peter Spiegel. Oh, All's Well is literary horror. It's the best way I can describe it. And then The Last Unicorn, this is like a fantasy. And I think it's like a classic, but I'm going to have to graduate this. This is going in quite entertaining. I love this. Also gave this 5 stars. Last Unicorn is one of my favorite movies. So, really love that. And then getting into September, the first book I read was Handsome Death. This is a horror romance. I think in my notes I called it terrible romance with vampire wallpaper. Paranormal, whatever. I hated this so much. So that's definitely going in the I wish I had DNF'd category. And then the next book I finished was Elimination. This was a book of poetry. Did not work for me. So I'm going to put this in Ho-Hum. It had a very interesting format, like a lot of typed pages, a lot of interesting pages, a lot of interesting pictures, but poetry just wasn't working for me. And then the last book I read in September was not a good reading month. I read Kathleen Hell is a Crazy Stalker. I liked this book the most out of all the books I read in September. I gave this 4 stars. This is a collection of essays, so I guess kind of sort of like a memoir. I'm gonna put this in middle of the road. It was interesting. And then, and what month was that? September. I DNF 2 books. I DNF Beyond the Stars and Shadows by Kristen Martin. This is, I think it's called metaphysical fiction, but it's basically like sci-fi. The sci-fi elements were terrible. So after a while, I don't know, I couldn't stand it anymore. I think I got almost halfway through the book too, and normally I wouldn't DNF a book that late, but I was not enjoying myself. And then I also DNF'd The Life of Captain Marvel. This is a comic book, and I borrowed this from Amazon from Prime Reading. It was just a lot darker than I was expecting. Basically, Captain Marvel decides she has to deal with some abuse, and I was just like not in the mood for that. So if I change my mind, I guess I can borrow it again, but I probably won't. So moving on to October, the first book I read was Wendy Darling. And then I'm giving this 3 stars. This is a horror Peter Pan retelling. Really good writing. Like, writing was amazing. It was so atmospheric. It was so good. And then, like, I don't know what happened. we get some reveals towards the end, and they were just kind of a letdown. So I'm going to put this in the ho-hum category. Then I read The Nightmare Before Christmas. This is a poetry/picture book. So if you don't know, The Nightmare Before Christmas started off as a poem. This was beautiful and fantastic. Loved it so much. This is going up to, gonna put this in quite entertaining. Yeah. And then the next book I finally finished listening to The Witching Hour. This is the longest audiobook ever. I think it's like 50-hour audiobook. This book is over 1,000 pages, and this is also a reread. And I first read it in high school, and still 5 stars. Still one of my favorite books of all time. It is so dark. Paranormal, which is so fun. So this is going up into the best of. And then I read another poetry book. This is Swallowtail. And yeah, this is ho-hum. It was fine. It's a little abstract for my taste. And then the last book I read in October was The Love Hypothesis, which I gave 4 stars to. This is like probably the second contemporary romance book I've given 4 stars to, which is like high praise coming from me. So this was very entertaining. I'm going to put this in quite entertaining, get it up there. And then moving on to November, the first book I read was Uzumaki, and another horror manga. This was fantastic. So we're also going to put this in quite entertaining. And then next I read Fluffy McWhiskers. This is a picture book. It's Cuteness Explosion. It was super cute. Gonna put this in middle of the road. And then the last book I read in November, was Rhapsodic by Laura Talassa. Wish I DNF that. What is this? Paranormal, adult, new adult, indie published, paranormal, whatever. Hated it. So, moving on to December. The first book I finished was I listened to A Christmas Carol. This is just a couple hours long. The narrator did a great job. This is such a good story. Love this so much. It was my favorite read for December, so I'm putting this in best of. I've been meaning to read this book for years. Should have read it years ago. And then I read The Lost Bells. This is a poetry book. This was good. I'm going to put it in the middle of the road. Give it 4 stars, but that's where I'm putting it. And then I read Beneath the Moon. This is fairy tales and folk tales and beautiful art. And it was very dense, but very good. So I'm going to put this in quite entertaining. But yeah, I thought this was great. So great. And then next I read another Nightmare Before Christmas. And this is Disney's animated classic. And this was also fantastic. Also gave this 5 stars. And then the second to last book I read for the year is Wit and Wisdom of Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. This was Also very entertaining. Not what I was expecting, but that was really good. Gonna put in the middle of the road. And the last book I read in 2021 was The Other Black Girl by Zakia Dalia Harris. And this ended up being really entertaining. I thought it was going to be like a 3-star read, but it ended up being very entertaining. So I think I want to put it middle of the road just because most of the book was very boring. But I ended up really liking it. So this is how I rate stuff. This does not make any sense. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, now that I have everything, I'm going to rearrange. I'm going to try to put them in order of like my most favorite in every single category. We'll see if that is a huge mess. Because right now they're just kind of in the order that I read them. But I guess it's DNF category is what it is. But if I was going to move these around, I would probably move Inferno to the top. And everything else can stay where it is. And then, yeah, this category, I think out of everything I hated, though, probably put You're Mine first. And then Rhapsodic. Yeah, we'll just do this because I hate everything else so much. So out of all the books that I hated You're Mine the least. And then this ho-hum category, I don't know. I guess I would put Wendy Darling first. Just because I really liked most of that book. I'm just going to leave everything else as is. Okay. In middle of the road. Let me see. I was going to read all the books, but I just felt like that's just going to take a long time. So I have 10 books in my best of category, and I kind of put them in order of they're my favorite, and I know this doesn't make any sense. I have the wives and the best of, give it 3 stars. It was just so entertaining. And I thought about that book for days, and I still want to reread it. So, I don't know. I don't have to make sense. And then I have 10 books in the best of category, 27 books in the quite entertaining category. We have, I think, 19 books in the middle of the road category. And these were books that I enjoyed reading, but I didn't think they were the best books that I read. But I enjoyed them. And I probably should have put Nerve and Ho-Hum, but I stand by what I did. And then Ho-Hum, we have, it looks like 14 books. And then in my wish I DNF these books, I have 6 books. And then how many books have I DNF'd? Looks like I've DNF'd 14 books this year, which is pretty high for me. But I'm also glad because I'm trying to not torture myself so much anymore. Still tortures myself a little bit, obviously, but not that much. If these books here in the no category are like the only other books I wanted to DNF, you know? I mean, I wanted to DNF The Echo Wife when I got towards the end, but that's a short book and I was almost done. And I really liked the first half. So there we go. And yeah, we'll see if this worked. I don't know. I'm trying to screen record. I don't know. Hopefully the sound recorded so I don't have to start over and redo this. But anyway, that is me ranking all the books that I read. And obviously I use tiermaker.com. I will link it in the description. And yeah, let me know. Have you read any of these books? Do you want to make me any recommendations based on these books that I put at the top? And specifically these books that you can see. Do you want to make me any book recommendations based on these books? And yeah, that's all. So hopefully this worked. If you're watching this, it did. So pat on the back for me that I figured it out. And yeah, I will see you guys next week. I'm going to go through all my book stats and everything from last year. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I will see you guys in that video. And I hope you're having a great January so far. Bye.